Newsmaker Sunday with Fox 10's John Hook.
Thanks for joining us on Newsmaker Sunday. We're very, very pleased to have Representative Tom O'Halleran here, Democrat from Arizona, District 1. He's a freshman congressman. Before that, he served in the Arizona legislature. He was a Republican back then and switched parties, and he's really kind of a middle-of-the-road guy, I guess you would say.
I guess I was a moderate as a Republican, and I'm a moderate as a Democrat.
We talked about it in the last program, which was right after you won. Why did you switch?
I had problems with the position of the Republican Party in Arizona on education, on health care, and a number of other issues. It was going from bad to worse, and I decided that that was not the direction that I thought the country should be going in.
You replaced Ann Kirkpatrick in District 1. Let me roll a little video here. I want to play tape 1 because one of your colleagues has now announced that she is going to run for Jeff Flake's seat in the U.S. Senate. Tell me about Kyrsten Sinema, your relationship with her. This was the announcement, and what do you think? Did you know she was going to do it? This has been a 3-month, 4-month thing.
There's plenty of rumors. You know, I didn't know. I was on a plane with her last night, and she didn't let it out then. Because she obviously wanted, she called me this morning, but she wanted a calm plane ride home. But Kyrsten's going to be a formidable opponent for Jeff Flake. I think she's energetic. She raises funds well, and I think for the state of Arizona, she's where the issues need to be.
There has not been a Democrat who's won a U.S. Senate seat since Dennis T. Cassini in 1988. It's been a while. Why is that?
I don't know. I just talked to the senator this morning, in fact.
Oh, Dennis?
Yeah.
He's been on this program, and I've known him for a long time because I worked in Tucson, and Dennis, of course, is from there.
And we were talking about politics, but he's doing well. But I think that, you know, we've had a Democratic governor, a couple of them in the last few decades. It's a state that has a history of electing women, and I think that you know, in the environment that we're in, a person like Kyrsten is going to have a great opportunity.
Let me ask you about a couple things going on in the world right now. First of all, tape number 4. This was an emotional day when Steve Scalise returned finally after being shot on a ball field. You were there. Tell me what this moment was like.
Well, you know, the energy in the room was just unbelievable.
A moment of unity?
Yeah. Oh, definitely a moment of unity. I mean. And he gave such a wonderful speech.
He did.
It was outstanding. He thanked all the people, and he thanked those that saved his life. He had a terrible time. Having been a homicide detective, I know what those types of wounds mean.
In Chicago.
Yes. A lot of people die from those wounds. He struggled through. He got up on that floor and gave a long speech without wavering. You just have to hand it to him. We're all glad to have him back, and he made sure that he understood. Everybody understood. He got shot, but it was an attack on our government.
No doubt. Do you think a moment like that at all, Congressman? Do you think it does kind of make everybody step back and go, man, we've got to be more civil to one another?
I think it does for the moment. I'm sad to say that this has happened a number of times, whether it was Gabby Giffords or whether it was the shootings in Connecticut, and everybody said we have to do something about this and we have to work together, and it just hasn't happened to the level it needs to. That's why I'm a member of the bipartisan group called the Problem Solvers.
Let me ask you about, I didn't plan on asking you this, but I've never asked you about gun control. Where are you on gun control?
Well, I'm a believer in Second Amendment rights. If it's something that will help hunting and help us protect ourselves.
It's big in your district.
It's big in my district.
So you're an advocate of the Second Amendment?
I am an advocate.
Should there be a limit on what kinds of weapons are available? You know, semi-autos and things like this?
Yeah, we've decided that our citizens should be allowed to have semi-automatic weapons. I think as we move up into the fully automatic weapons and so forth, but you know, there's not a lot of hunters out there that need assault weapons. But we're not going to be doing away with them anytime soon.
I've been thinking about this a lot. You know, Westboro Baptist Church does some very provocative things. They want to protest at a military funeral about gay rights. And people say, wait a minute, time out. Time and place. You should not be doing this at a soldier's funeral. And everybody goes, yeah, that's right. That's probably not right. But could the same thing be said about the anthem, that if these players want to protest, that may not be the place to do it?
Well, let's put it this way. The church might have done that. They were allowed to do it. And we as Americans have the right to walk away from that with how we feel about that incident.
And condemn it if we want to.
If we want to overcome these types of incidents, we have to first recognize what the underlying problem is and address that problem. And as a society, we haven't been doing a good enough job, obviously, in some of these areas. But also, I think the players have started to understand that it's good to stand up during and lock arms in unity. We as Americans want to unify anyway. You know, being disrespectful to the flag, you know, that's part of the symbolism of our country. Mm-hmm. And so I respect them for, as Americans, to be able to do what they want, the way they want it, but everybody else should be able to have their opinion too. The underlying issue is what I care about the most. The issue of people being able to understand one another, work with one another, and make sure that we understand that in the eyes of our Constitution, we're all equal, mm-hmm. and should be treated that way.
Let me play tape number 3. I just want to get your reaction because this threw gas on the fire. Take a listen.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!
Was that simply political pandering on the part of the president? Was there a racial undertone or overtone to that, did you think? Or do you think it's possible he just felt that way about it? White, black, indifferent?
I don't know. I can't read his mind. I can say that one of the words he used there was disrespectful to the women and the mothers of America. I can say that within the confines of the presidency, that he has to become more of a unifier than separating us as a country. And it's his job in a time like this to instead of adding fuel to the fire, look out there and say, let's all sit down, let's identify what these issues are, and let's start to work with them and start to lead on the issues of bringing our country together unified, mm-hmm. instead of that type of rhetoric.
Let me go through, it's interesting, I was looking through your voting record, tracking Congress in the age of Trump. This is according to 538. Mm-hmm. You've probably seen this. Your Trump score, how often O'Halleran votes in line with Trump's position? 43.5% of the time. A little less than half.
That's a selected number of votes. That's not, and first of all, these are positions of the people that sponsored those bills, not Mr. Trump's positions. And so that...
But it says who Trump, you know, if he supported or not. If he supported it, say the Federal Aviation Administration reauthorization of disaster relief. Trump supported it. You supported it. You voted yes.
I supported disaster relief.
Okay, now interesting. Imposing sanctions on Russia, Iran, and North Korea. The president opposed it. You said yes.
Yes. Yeah, as did most of Congress.
So you're parting company, obviously. I mean, you're a Democrat. You're going to part company with the president quite a bit of the time. I mean, you vote with him 40-some%, but you're against him about 2/3 of the time.
I vote my district first.
Right.
I also vote in relationship to the issues of the bill and how I feel about that. I don't look at what Mr. Trump wants or doesn't want.
That's really not your concern.
No, he has a tax bill out now. I'll look at the underlying issues and analysis of the bill. I'm not going to look at because the president wants
right.
it.
This is a separation of powers, right?
Well, that's what we're there for.
Okay, let me ask you about this vote. Penalizing states and locations that have sanctuary laws on immigration. Trump supported it, obviously. He's big on cracking down on illegal immigration. You said no.
Yes.
Tell me why.
Because having been a police officer, I know what it takes out there on a busy Friday night, Saturday night, and throughout your tour duties to be able to maintain the safety on those streets as is. If you start taking police officers off the street to address these issues without any federal relief from the federal government, the federal government doesn't say, we'll add another 50, right. 100, 200 police officers.
You're stuck being a de facto ICE agent.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
and that's not the job of our local police.
Since you've done it, let me ask you this. The other argument we hear a lot is that if you start really cracking down in those communities, it dries up information and your ability as a law enforcement officer to investigate crime.
We've seen that already.
You believe that?
Oh, I believe it.
So that isn't a talking point. That's reality out in the street.
There has to be a trust relationship between, in my case, an investigator and the person I'm interviewing. And if there's no trust relationship, then there's no interview.
Let me ask you about Obamacare, as what's been called the Affordable Care Act, but widely known as Obamacare. I want to show you this video. This is tape number 5. This didn't happen in your chamber. But John McCain, the thumbs down.
Mm-hmm.
He became a deciding vote, not once but twice. Here he comes. He's going to give the thumbs down. Mitch McConnell standing there looking just forlorn. What did you make of this?
I made it that this is John McCain. And John McCain understood. He has a great staff. He understood the implications of the law.
Act of courage.
And well, do we expect anything else from John McCain? I mean, he is who he is. The person you see is who he is. He and I agree all the time? No.
Right.
But you respect his service to our country. You respect that he does his homework. And you have to respect that his #1 position is to call the governor up here and say, you know, what is this good or bad for the people of Arizona?
Let me ask you that.
Decision.
Is the Affordable Care Act, as we are kind of, let me say, stuck with it right now because the Republicans haven't been able to fix it or change it or repeal it, how's it working in your district? You know, we hear in Maricopa County we're down to 1 provider and the rates are soaring. Are you experiencing that around?
Probably worse in rural Arizona.
Okay.
That's why I've sent a letter to the Senate. That's why I've sent a letter to the President asking for make sure we stabilize the marketplace and then fix this thing. It is
fixable, you think?
Well, I think it's fixable, but we have to make efforts at it to do it in the right way. The idea that we're fixing it because we made a promise and not fixing it because this is the right fix for it, or the idea that we are fixing it because we have to fix it within a time frame so that we don't cut into the 60-vote issue after September 30th. These are political discussions.
Right,
this isn't reality for our citizens.
Let me ask you one more thing on health care. Do you think that down the line we will end up single payer at some point?
I have no idea.
Do you like that idea or not?
No, that's the key. It is an idea.
Right. I mean, Bernie Sanders talks a lot about it, but the cost of it is just prohibitive.
Well, I don't think anybody knows the cost of it. It has never been vetted at all. And so that's my issue. When somebody asks me, do I support it? I support making sure that all Americans have health insurance. Now, how we get there is a whole different issue. Because I don't know today, nobody knows what impact it would have on Medicare, Medicaid, Veterans Administration. Does that all have to be combined into one? None of these ideas have been vetted, none of them. And so until we start vetting them and coming up with, just like we just saw with health care, none of those had been clearly vetted in this last bill.
That was John McCain's issue with it. That was one of many.
And thank God he had that issue with it.
Finally, before we take a break, you've been in there now, where are we, 6, 7 months?
About 9 months.
Oh, yeah, 9 months. I'm thinking it's summertime. We're out of summer.
It feels like summer.
What's your general impression of the place? What you expected or a little different?
I think the people down there individually are outstanding people. They care for their country no matter what view they take. A lot of them, most of them, vast majority, are hardworking, dedicated to our country, believe in what they're doing.
Are they there for the right reasons?
I think in general they are. But again, you can have all the reasons internally you want. Our purpose there has to be, whether you're Republican or Democrat, to find solutions to problems and move that issue forward, not to have a history of year after. There's a reason why the people of this country are frustrated. The workers are frustrated because they don't see any progress moving forward. The people that want to address certain public policy issues are frustrated because there's no movement to address those problems. And that creates an environment that is not, in the long term, conducive to a strong economy and creating an environment where we maintain our stature as the #1 country in the world. Economically, we can do it defensively for some amount of time, but if our economy continues to suffer, that won't occur either.
We're going to take a break on Newsmaker Sunday. When we come back, we're going to talk with Representative O'Halleran about taxes. How much of your money should you keep? And even though we're still figuring out the numbers, we're going to talk a little bit about that and more with Representative Tom O'Halleran, Democrat from Arizona, running for a second term in CD1. Back in a minute on Newsmaker Sunday. Back with Democratic Congressman Tom O'Halleran from District 1 in Arizona. This district, it's massive. It's one of the largest congressional districts in the United States. It's kind of a reverse C that runs up from Tucson, up east and north, and then gets all the way to the Utah border and to the east to the New Mexico border.
Right, and all the way to Fredonia and Wallapai Apache Nation.
I don't know how in the world you traverse this swath of district and get to know kind of where everybody's coming from.
We've developed it into zones, so every weekend I come out, we go into a different zone and address the issues within that zone, and then the following weekend we will go into another zone.
I asked you this the last time you were on the program. Is there any tie that binds in your district where you say that's an issue that everybody's concerned about? What would that issue be?
Jobs.
Jobs.
Economy. You know, it's about sitting at the kitchen table talking about how am I going to support my family.
Well, then you just articulated what may have gotten Donald Trump elected.
Could be.
And he won your district by a narrow margin, maybe 1%, 1.1%.
1.5%.
1.5%.
I outpolled him by 5%.
You outpolled him by 5%.
I did.
Is that message resonating in Washington?
Oh, it's loud and clearly. The Democratic messaging has started in the direction of where it had been historically, about making sure we understand what the wage earners of America are in need of and keep them employed, have a better quality of life for families, and then identify some of the groups I'm involved in have clearly identified that we have to. There is no better life forward in America without a good, sound business climate.
Trump talks about this a lot. I mean, do you look at him and say, you know what, he's bombastic, he's outrageous at times, he's offensive at times, but you know what, his general instincts on the big issues are right?
I don't know about his general instincts on the big issues being right. We'll see what the tax bill has to offer. We've seen what the budget has to offer, and I don't believe that the budget that's being voted on Wednesday by the House is going to be a budget that offers much to the people that are concerned about education and health care and some of the other issues of our country. I voted for the defense bill, but I'm also on the Armed Services Committee and sit in on those classified briefings and have some concerns.
Let's talk about taxes for a minute.
Sure.
We really don't have too much concrete. This is all going to be negotiated. But generally, just as a philosophy, do you believe that government is taking too much right now? And from which people?
It depends what people want. You know,
what do you think?
We just increased defense by $70 billion. We are...
so you got to pay for that.
We just had a disaster in 3 different areas that's going to cost us about $300 billion over the next 5-10 years. These are all costs that, whether we like them or not, they're going to continue coming. And so we have to balance the difference. We have to incentivize our economy to the level that it creates more jobs, better paying jobs. We have to make sure that those that have not had a good raise in a long time but are still working Americans are able to have a higher quality of life, and those below them that have not been able to get a job and a good paying job are able to get a job because we've incentivized the economy.
Okay, on the issue of kind of helping people feel that their life is improving, a tax cut for the middle class, working but kind of stagnating, and they have been for many years in this country. That seems like a reasonable proposal.
That's what we have, is basically an outline of a proposal. We don't have a proposal. And we have a bunch of different numbers, whether it's 35% down to 20 for corporations, or three brackets instead of 7 brackets for individuals and small business. But those numbers are meaningless without understanding what's going to be done to the deductions and exemptions and all these other loopholes that are out there. So right now, the 35% for corporations is an effective rate of 18.6%.
Right.
And so if we put it down to 20% and nothing else changes, it's really an effective rate of 5%. And we've moved the lower end of the bracket for individuals from 10% up to 12%, but doubled the standard deduction to $24,000. What does that really mean? We have to figure that out.
Let's talk about generally where the job creation is in that top maybe 10%. And there's a lot of, we talked about it before the program, there's demagoguery on this issue about, well, this is just a tax cut for the rich. Well, the top 10% are paying 70% of the taxes in this country. Federal taxes.
Federal tax, right.
So are they not paying their fair share when people say, let's tax them more? Aren't they doing their part?
Well, I don't think anybody's saying tax them more. It's identifying how that we find that balance within the system to allow those that are down below them to be able to feel that they're part of society's momentum to move our country forward.
Is it an either or?
And benefit from that.
Is it an either?
It doesn't have to be.
Okay.
That's why the outline that can become a proposal that will eventually become a bill has to not only be talked about in terms of brackets,
right,
but they have to be talked in terms of real, what does this mean for the American
with
public
the
and our
deductions,
business community.
get a raw number.
Exactly.
One quick thing before we depart from that subject. Do you think that there's some bipartisan agreement that tax cuts may be a good thing?
I think so. I think that we would like to find common ground on that, and that's exactly what we're trying to do.
Okay, we'll take a break, and we're back with Representative Tom O'Halleran, Democrat, District 1, Arizona, running for a second term. Hard to believe we're talking about that already. Back in a minute on Newsmaker Sunday. Back on Newsmaker Sunday with Arizona Congressman Tom O'Halleran, Democrat from District 1, running for re-election. You're part of a group called Problem Solvers in Congress. This is a group of Democrats and Republicans that meet every week?
Sometimes more often than that, and we have subcommittees too.
Tell me what you do and what this is about.
Well, it's equal. There's 23 Republicans, 23 Democrats. If you want to join, you have to find another person from the other party. It's equal. We want to keep it equal all the way up. And what we do is talk across party lines to find areas that we have agreement in.
You do this in a meeting room? Or
oh, yeah, and in subcommittees. And then when we're done, like we did with health care, we bring that proposal forward for the public and the leadership in the Congress to see that, first of all, there are different opinions on issues, and that we can come together as a country, we can come together as politicians and statesmen and realize that compromise is a good thing.
As a former Chicago policeman, 1966 to 1979, I want to show you this video. This is number 9, tape number 9, because as a former law enforcement guy, but a free speech guy as well, does this stuff bother you, this Antifa stuff that's going on?
I would much rather see peaceful demonstration. I think that Martin Luther King probably did it best, and he got a long ways with peace. When we see something like this where fellow Americans are in this type of conflict, it's not good for our country. I don't like violence.
What about the dampening of free speech when you have people out there clubbing people who just have a different point of view than them?
That's not what our Constitution's about. Hate speech is bad. Hitting people is bad. We have laws for a reason, you know, but intentionally going out with hateful speech is not a good thing.
A couple of seconds left. I think we have 10 seconds left. Are you hopeful about what's going to happen in Congress? Do you think there's a chance to work with this president, or will it just, from Democrats' view, best to keep him in a box and just block him?
Well, I don't think 3.5 more years, or about 3.5 more years, our nation can't afford to not try to find solutions to issues. We can't afford doing what we've been doing all along. We have to address this as a country.
Good to see you again,
Thanks,
Congressman.
John.
Really appreciate it. Come back.
Will do.
You got a deal. Back on Newsmaker Sunday next week. We'll see you then. Thank you, Congressman O'Halleran.